In my last video, I dove into Need for Speed ProStreet for the first time. To my surprise, the game was actually awesome, with a ton of depth and customization, overall exceeding my expectations for it. If you'd like to check out my full analysis, I've linked the video on the screen now, and I've put the entire Need for Speed series playlist down below in the description. Need for Speed ProStreet was the latest game in my journey to play every Need for Speed game, and with ProStreet now out of the way, that leads us to Need for Speed Undercover. With Need for Speed Undercover, EA and Black Box decided that instead of pushing the closed circuit racing experiment they established with ProStreet forward, they would instead return to the open world street racing formula of Most Wanted and Carbon. When I learned this, I was bummed out, but still hopeful that Undercover would be a good game. I mean, why wouldn't it be? Black Box's record leading up to this was just win after win after win. I know that for many people, Undercover is where the wheels started to come off, and it's seen as a bit of a misstep in the Need for Speed timeline. Regardless of everyone else's opinion, I'm committed to giving you all my unfiltered first-time playthrough opinion, so get your snacks, take a seat, get comfortable, because this one is a doozy. My name is Mercy, and I played Need for Speed Undercover for the first time. Enjoy. Need for Speed Undercover released on November 18th, 2008 for an ungodly amount of platforms. Those are the PS2, PS3, PSP, Wii, Xbox 360, Nintendo DS, and PC. Today I'll be primarily focused on the PC version, but I'll also be bringing up the PS2 version when I can, because these games are similar enough in concept, but also different enough to mention throughout the video. However, the PSP and DS versions of Undercover are way different games, and to me they warrant their own deep dives in the future, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the upcoming Need for Speed handheld games video. Enough about platforms, let's start with the story. Need for Speed Undercover takes place in Tri-City Bay, where you play as an unnamed police officer who's been tasked by the FBI to go, well, undercover and take down the city's criminal organizations. These criminal organizations are suspected of running international smuggling operations and possessing stolen cars that were taken weeks prior to the events of the game. Your contact within the FBI, Chase Lynn, directs you towards different street races, so you start getting noticed and start making your mark within different organizations around Tri-City, earning their trust before eventually taking them down. Throughout most of the game, you're sort of Lynn's lackey until a major wrench gets thrown into the plot late, and you find out that maybe Lynn isn't the ally you thought she was. Going into this game, I was pretty stoked knowing that it had a storyline again, especially after ProStreet skipped out on this. But after playing it, be careful what you wish for. What made the previous game so memorable for me wasn't so much the story itself, but it was the larger-than-life characters, the antagonists you couldn't help but love. Razor looking me dead in the eye and telling me he's gonna take my car, then take my girl. The corny character intros in Carbon, along with lovable sidekicks like Neville and Sal. All of that is absent in Undercover. It's like Undercover is going for a more serious, big-budget, high-stakes story, but to me, instead, it kind of comes off like a cable TV drama. One positive is that we do get the return of live-action cutscenes, but something just kind of feels off about them. There are those funny moments like this one.
That's what I'm talking about. That's how we get things done.
But they just all feel so unintentional, like these characters almost seem forced. Like they had these actors do one take and said, yep, that's the take, on to the next scene. It lacks sincerity, and that extends, unfortunately, to the rest of the game as well. But before I dive into the gameplay side of things, I want to talk about something that has genuinely been a problem for me: sleeping. As I've gotten older, I've realized that a wild night for me is just getting 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. That's why I'm so excited to be partnering with today's video sponsor, Manta Sleep. Manta Sleep makes premium sleeping masks that genuinely block out all light. I mean, really, I can't see a thing right now. Manta Sleep uses these deep contoured eye cups that cushion your eyes and don't actually touch your eyes or eyelashes. Both them and the head strap are adjustable, easy to clean, and easy to adjust, because let's be honest, I got a big head. Whether you're a side sleeper, a traveler, or just someone like me who needs complete darkness to function the next day, this thing is a lifesaver. If you're ready to take your sleep seriously, you can grab your own Manta Sleep Mask at the link in my description, or simply by using code MERCY10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. Thank you again to Manta Sleep for sponsoring the video, and now, back to the video. Need for Speed Undercover is, like I said earlier, an open world game with 4 different districts to drive on, all connected by a series of highways. Funny enough, the PS2 and Wii versions of the game take place on a stripped down, reworked version of Rockport with 3 districts instead. How weird is that? I can't say I know of any other games that do this off the top of my head, but I'm sure they're out there. If you know of one, leave it down in the comments below. After beating the game, I'm thinking I would have preferred to just drive on Rockport instead. I found Tri-City to be such a bland and lifeless map. I couldn't tell you one single landmark on this map, or one spot from another. That's because I never really felt the need to learn the ins and outs of it like I did with Rockport or even Palmont. That's due to a few things. Let's break it down one by one and start with the overall lack of content in that open world. Each mission in Need for Speed Undercover can be started from either the map screen or just by pressing down on the D-pad in the open world. Outside of the missions, there is nothing to do in the open world. No random NPCs to challenge to a race, nothing to find or unlock, there's just missions and more missions. Part of why I love Underground 2's map so much is seeing all of the random racers on the road that I can interact with, that I can challenge to a race that'll unlock exclusive parts, or just give me a little bit of extra cash. Or how in Most Wanted I can get tied up into a pursuit that I might not have wanted. Both of these examples force me to learn the map. I might not want to learn it then and there, but the game will be much more fun later on if I do. By comparison, Need for Speed Undercover feels lifeless and stale, with zero incentive to learn its map. It desperately needs content in the open world. I found myself finishing an event and just going right to the D-pad to start the next event, regardless of what it was, rinse and repeat for the entire game. You might be saying to yourself, well, what about learning the map just to make the game easier on yourself? You said so yourself, it'll save you the trouble in Underground 2, Most Wanted, and Carbon, so what about an Undercover? Well, I would be saying that if Undercover was a difficult game, but it is not. This is by far the easiest Need for Speed game that I've played so far. And look, I expect games to be pretty easy when you first start playing to kind of get you up to speed, so I didn't think too much of it at first, but this game is something else. I was halfway through the game still winning each race by 10 or more seconds. It did nothing to challenge me until late into the game, and even then it was only for a mission or two. Those outruns I mentioned earlier, I'd get so far ahead that I could just park my car and sit there for what felt like forever and still beat my opponent. On the flip side, the PS2 version does have selectable difficulties, and I found that normal was actually a pretty good challenge. Some races I would dominate, others I felt like I needed to maybe revisit a little later. It was a good balance that the PC version just didn't have. So we have an open world game that has nothing to do in said open world, and it's so easy there's no incentive to learn the map. Why even have an open world if it serves no purpose? This is such a huge pet peeve of mine when it comes to game design, and these are usually the kinds of open world games that I like to avoid. There needs to be structure, there needs to be a reason for the game to be open world to begin with, and the world needs things in it to make it feel like you're a part of it. Whether those are side missions or interactions with NPCs, just something to keep you busy outside of the structured events, and sadly this game has none of it. Let's talk about the visual style, because I will say the game does have a very distinct look. The problem with that look is that, well, I just flat out don't like it. Everything is drenched in this yellow, orange, brown filter that some might be quick to call the piss filter, but if your piss looks like this, please see a doctor. I genuinely love the piss filter. Call it nostalgia, call it bad taste, call it whatever you want to call it, but this is not a piss filter. I'm declaring it right here, right now. This is the atomic bomb filter. What exactly is going on here? Are we recovering from a nuclear war in Tri-City? Why does the sun look like that? I guess the style is meant to kind of coincide with that serious TV drama look they've got going on during the cutscenes, but I'm just not buying it. I probably wouldn't mind this filter as much if I enjoyed the game, but I think it's just another item on a laundry list of problems, and that problem extends to the modes as well. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't a variety of them. There are your usual suspects like circuit races, sprint races, outruns, checkpoint races, and they've added one new mode, that being the highway battles. The goal here is to get a certain distance in front of your opponent while swerving through heavy traffic. Once you get that distance away, you win. I liked these a lot. They sort of reminded me of the drag races from the earlier titles, but without the steering limitations. There are no drag races or drifting in this game. Hallelujah. I suck at drifting, so I say good riddance. I absolutely needed a break from it. Now, interestingly enough though, the PS2 version actually has more modes than the PC. It has all of the same modes as PC, but then there's also Toll Booth from Most Wanted, which is essentially a checkpoint race, Lap Knockout, which is an eliminator race. Each lap a new driver gets knocked out of the race until only one remains. Timed Circuit, which is a circuit race like any other, but instead of laps, there's a set time limit. And my personal favorite new mode, Chase Down. Chase Down allows you to take control of a cop car and hunt down criminals under a certain time limit. I wish this mode was more pivotal to the game. It exists as just a fun little extra to earn a few bucks with, but it was still cool to see it in the game at all. Both versions, however, have pursuit missions. These require you to take out a certain number of cops to cause a certain amount of damage, or to just escape the cops' reach. These were fine, I guess. It's hard to judge because the game is, once again, just too easy. The police in Most Wanted were terrifying, especially at high heat levels. They required legitimate strategy to defeat and escape. For me, they were pretty frustrating at times, and I even said in my review I didn't care for them too much. Well, guess what? In hindsight, I was completely wrong, because even if they were frustrating to deal with, these cops in this game are so much worse. They are complete and total pushovers, to the point where I question why they're even in the game. I think the only time I got arrested was when I drove over some spike strips, which I found out magically spawns more cops to box you in. Thanks game, at least the cutscenes of you getting arrested are kinda funny. I just couldn't help shake the feeling that Undercover was just a poor retread of past titles, lacking any true original ideas. Now I will say the handling model in this game is a pretty big departure from both the older titles I've referenced and ProStreet. The handling here is grippy. So grippy to the point where spinning out is basically impossible, unless you're hitting something or you pull the handbrake. Even with low tier cars, I was able to slam the gas and fly through corners I would have needed to slow down for in older titles. The car just does not slide or lose traction at all. There's sort of a challenge there in trying to maximize the road width and push it to the limit, but too often I felt like I was playing on autopilot. It felt like the car was driving itself and the AI drivers just couldn't keep up with me. On the plus side, this does allow for a pretty great sense of speed, and blasting around Tri-Cities highways was pretty friggin' fun with this level of grip. I wouldn't want it in every game, but I did enjoy it in this one. The PS2 version, however, has a physics model that more closely aligns with Most Wanted or Carbon, and I actually really enjoyed my time driving cars in the game. You actually have to brake and counter steer to hold the car steady. I know, it's a crazy concept. One crazy concept they implemented into Need for Speed Undercover is an RPG-style leveling system, where completing different events levels up your character and upgrades stats like your amount of boost or gives you parts discounts. But of course, they screwed this up too, and instead of letting you choose which stats to upgrade like you would in an RPG, everything is preset based on your XP level, which this game calls your wheelman level. I asked myself this regarding the open world, and now I'm asking myself this regarding the leveling system. What is even the point of having this if you can't customize and choose what you want to put your XP into? This series at this point in time was known for its car customization, so why limit it to just cars if we're going to be including this? Like, I try to keep a level head and keep my cool making these videos. I don't like being so negative all the time, but genuinely, what were they thinking with this game? I know hindsight is 2020 and we can look back and say, oh, they should have done this, they should have done that, but this to me is such a no-brainer. There are so many decisions here that genuinely confuse me, and we haven't even touched on the cars or their customization, the soundtrack, none of it. So how about it? What about the cars? Well, there's a pretty significant roster of cars here, with 59 different cars to choose from. The PS2 and Wii versions have 39 cars, which is still a good amount in my eyes. Some cars are available on all platforms and some are only available on one or the other. For example, the Audi R8 is available on the PC, PS3, and 360, but not on PS2 and Wii, whereas the Infiniti G35 is available on PS2 and Wii, but not PC, PS3, and 360. Yeah, it's confusing. I started my journey off with the Lotus Elise, and then I traded it in for the Mitsubishi Evo 10, which I then traded in for the Porsche 911 GT3 RS, which carried me through most of the game. I also used the McLaren F1 for a bit, and then I finally settled on the Nissan GT-R R35. Outside of the Evo, every car felt like a supercar in terms of grip, and with a handling upgrade, I made the Evo feel the same way. Outside of the speed, look, and sound of each car, you'll find it hard to differentiate each car from one another. Maybe I just got lucky and picked cars that all felt similar, but I'm just sharing my experience here. Customization also felt very by the books and expected in Undercover. You can go in there and buy specific upgrades if you're short on cash, but there's also packages. Packages relate to power and handling and upgrade a bunch of different parts all at once. I had a tendency to just wait until I had enough cash saved until I could afford my next package. And if I couldn't afford a power package, I would at least get the nitrous upgrade and come back later for the rest. Regarding visual customization, you'd think the return of Auto Sculpt would excite me, but at this point, I'm just tired, boss. I mean, it does return, and it still features a few options for, bumpers, hoods, side skirts, the spoilers, and wheels, things you'd expect by this point, but I just didn't feel inspired to create anything crazy. I went in there and customized my car for the video, and I left. Usually I'd want to really spend some time in here and make some cursed abominations, but it all felt very by the books and expected, and safe. Safe, just like the rest of the game. If I had to sit here and highlight one excellent part of this game though, it has to be the soundtrack. It's great on all platforms, with Pendulum having 3 songs, Justice having 1, From First to Last, that's a deep cut, they have a song, and even 9 Inch Nails has 2 songs in the garage. I didn't expect that, but hey, I'll take what I can get. I am a huge fan of theirs. Overall, it's a mashup of rock and electronic music, and it suits the game very well, as you would expect. I had never heard of the electronic artist Underworld before, but they have 2 songs here that I absolutely fell in love with. It's just very chill, feel-good music that plays on the menus. I wouldn't expect to hear it in a Need for Speed game, or really any racing game at all, but I like it. As always, if you'd like to listen to the soundtrack, I've put a Spotify playlist down below. It is unfortunately one of the few highlights Undercover has to offer. And that just about wraps it up. I'm at the end of this video and I just don't know what to even say. I know Need for Speed Undercover had a less than amazing reputation going into this. I had seen the scores, I had heard the warnings, but I just didn't know it could be this bad. Coming off the back of ProStreet, a game that I genuinely think is fantastic, and with them revisiting the formula of Most Wanted and Carbon, 2 excellent open world racers, stepping into Undercover is like culture shock. The soul is gone, the characters are flat, and that friggin' open world. I don't know the complete history of this game's development. I have an idea that it was troubled and it was a rushed game, but I only want to speak on the final product. After playing Need for Speed Undercover, this game absolutely plays and feels like a rush job, a shell of what came before it. I mean, take a look at this clip here I'm showing you now. This is supposed to be the final showdown, the climax of the entire Undercover operation, and it ends like this. It's almost poetic. It perfectly encapsulates how unpolished and broken the overall experience feels. I really went into this with an open mind. I wanted to give it a fair shake, I really did, but it's just not a game worth giving any more of my time to. Need for Speed Undercover, to me, is a waste when so many better Need for Speed games exist that did this formula and did it much better. This is a game that exists to check boxes off of a list, nothing more. Now, while that applies to the PC version of the game I played, I was very surprised by the PlayStation 2 release of the game. It might not be the most original game in the series, and it reuses many of the same assets from the previous games, but I found it to be the better version of the two. I think if you've already played Most Wanted and Carbon a bunch, you're a veteran, and you're looking for more of that gameplay loop, then Undercover on the PS2 I think is a very competent game to fill that void. But do I love the game? No. No, I do not. But enough about me though, it's time to turn it over to you guys. What do you all think of Need for Speed Undercover? Are there any redeeming qualities to this game that I'm just missing? Let me know in the comments below. I try to read every comment posted. Huge shout out to my highest tier patrons CD-ROM Fossil and Arcade Racing Central, and to all of my patrons over on Patreon. You guys are awesome. My name is Mercy, and as always, have a good one.
That's what I'm talking about. That's how we get things done.